So that's really how I then evolved into the work that I do now of using what's available to us, and then we get into the whole epigenetic part of things, which is so unbelievably useful for anybody, because we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses, like anything in life, in our DNA as well. So if we can identify those, doesn't it make sense to say, how do we optimize that so we don't wait until we're at the point of like, well, saw that coming, why don't we do something about it?
Yeah. So is aging a choice?
Is aging a choice? Mentally, physically, it's a process that's going to happen naturally. However, you can really change the outcome of that aging. And today it's possible to live so much longer in such a healthier way. And it's physical and it's emotional. It's both.
Physical and emotional.
Yeah.
And you can address it yourself in real life. You haven't got to go to no clinic in Zurich.
Absolutely.
Like
no, but Geneva maybe. No, you can address it yourself. These are all things that you can do, and that's the coolest power of it, because it gives the power back to the individual.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's so much that's happened in technology from the perspective of understanding that our DNA expression can change.
Right.
That's huge. Epigenetics is the term. So to me, part of the coolest part of science of what's going on today, because it's a game changer.
Yeah.
And if people apply it, it gives the power back to the individual instead of going to Zurich.
Yes, indeed. Oh yeah, booking that one-way flight to Switzerland. And I've been tempted. It's special supplements you need that you can only get from like a lab in the middle of nowhere, or is it stuff that you can get from the supermarket?
No. It's all of it. Yeah, it's stuff you can get from the supermarket. It's stuff that you can get here. It's stuff that already exists in your body that you bring out. Like example, the power of exercise, right?
Yeah.
So what does that do? You go for a walk. What does that do? It can raise your serotonin, it can raise your dopamine. You do it outside in nature and you get that sunshine. You do it out in nature and you get that meditative quality to it. So there's so much that exists within us that we have a drugstore in here and we don't tap into it. We have a pharmacy and we don't tap in.
I happen to think that although it's very scientifically grounded and backed up by research, etc., it's also, there's a mystical quality to it.
Oh, absolutely.
The healing of the body by natural means.
Absolutely. I'm talking about, like you said, it's research-based, it's scientific, the physical part of things. But when we get to the emotional part of someone's health, to the spiritual part of someone's health, that's where we're transcending those lines. Like the physical part, that's the easiest to change, because it's like, here's a blueprint. This is what you need to do. Right? But when we are on the metaphysical side of things, that's where it really opens up, and that's where you can truly see someone's inner person, their soul can be exposed. So that really gets to the interesting stuff.
Yeah. And it's that, is there a place in your research, or in the research that you've studied as well, where matter, physicality, matter, and for want of a better word, the force, the nomenon, where those two meet, where matter sort of goes into the field, if you like. I know these words always sound so ridiculous when I say them out loud, but
no, everything is made up of matter. You're a matter, I'm matter. This beautiful scene that we have behind us, right? This couch that we're on, this camera that you're using, everything is made up of matter. Everything has an energy. Right? So these energy fields, this is where the magic happens. What you do, this is where the magic happens, because this is where they meet up. And what is going to be the result of this meeting this? That's pretty cool stuff.
Oh, amazing. One of the things I don't like is the whole, you sit at home and pay me and I'll pretend you're better. School of, I know some wonderful Reiki people, and it does work. I've seen them do miracles. So this is no but they are in the minority. The good ones are in the minority. The charlatans that do outnumber them.
Yeah.
And
everybody's a specialist. Everybody's an influencer.
The influencer community now is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, Yeah, like I talk. There's a place in Ramsbottom, the Chakra Rooms. Everyone there is legit. I've been there. It's a solid place. You go there, things happen, people get better. I've seen it with my eyes. Therefore,
Beautiful.
I know it to be real. But I also see these kids on TikTok talking about it,
Right.
and it's a little bit. I don't know. I'm not quite sure I'm going to trust you with that lump I just found this morning in the shower. I think I'll go and see a real doctor. But your stuff is like almost like the bridge. It's like the science is there.
Right.
But the healing and the application of it is...
It's expanding on it.
It's expanding, yeah, and it's beyond literally, we'll cut that out, or what you need is some radioactive rays bumped at you.
Right.
And when the stuff you talk about, it seems you can do it with diet, with the correct diet, with...
Absolutely, yeah. Your environment plays such a key role. Diet being part of your environment, or the positive or the negative thoughts that you allow into your mind, that becomes part of your environment, right? So that's so important. That can change everything on a cellular level. Someone being completely negative can change how your cells operate inside of you. I mean, that to somebody should be, wow, if I only change that, I want to keep on eating the way I do. I don't want to exercise. I don't care about any of that. I'm just going to change my attitude. That's a game changer in itself. There's so much that somebody can do for themselves.
Amazing.
It's good stuff.
Aye. What sort of vitamins should we be looking at?
Oh, okay. It really depends on the individual.
Right.
Just because something's over the counter, like a vitamin or a vitamin, it still changes your biochemistry.
Yeah.
Right? So just because someone else is taking something like, hey, this is a great idea, why don't you go ahead and take this? If you don't need it, it's not something for you.
Right.
So we actually look at lab panels to see what does somebody need, what is within their makeup, what are they lacking, what do they need to do to optimize this individual. 7.5 billion people in the world with 7.5 billion different sets of DNA. Everybody's not the same to get optimized, right? So that's a really good starting point to say, okay, let me see what's going on with me, where am I at, and what do I need to do, because it's not going to be the same as somebody else.
So it's more to you than just like a thing you do.
It's personal.
And what triggered this?
So at 46 years old, I'll be 64 next month, so that's 18 years ago. I had 2 TIAs, transient ischemic attack or mini strokes. Pretty much on the outside looked very similar, no one but, whoa, that's a stroke ready to happen. But it was what was going on inside of me physiologically from stress. So I had them within 10 days of each other. The second one actually went to the emergency department for, and it was actually interesting. My office manager said to me, Doc, you're having a stroke. And I said, I know. It was like just all very, I know. Okay, what do we do next? So she said, I'm going to call the ambulance. And I said, just drive me. By the time we got to the hospital, 20 minutes later, I couldn't speak, I couldn't walk.
Right.
And then several hours of lab diagnostics, workups, all that kind of stuff. The emergency room doc says to me, so you've had a TIA, a mini stroke, and your chances of having a full-blown stroke within the next 90 days are increased greatly.
Jesus.
Yeah, so he's like, you have to take a baby aspirin a day and reduce your stress. So by this point, I have half a funny bone left, and I'm like, okay, doc, slow down. I need to write this down. Reduce stress. Kind of like, how does one do that, right? So that's why I bring in that 18 years between when that happened and today, because it was changing my life step by step. I'm like, I'm going to die in my 40s, because I'm just going to work myself to death. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
This makes no sense.
And it was pure stress.
Pure stress, yeah. But the thing was, so what I wanted to figure out was, okay, reduce your stress, understood. But physiologically, what was changing in my body to get to that point? Because if you can identify that, then you say, okay, what do we need to do to reverse that, right?
Yes.
Because it's not like the event happened. That doesn't mean I'm better because I walked out of the emergency department, right? Still, whatever is happening physiologically still isn't optimized. So that became my jump into all of this kind of work that I do now. Because there's so much more that's available for people to know that we really don't share. We just kind of wait for the event. We're not healthy one day, sick the next. It's all the living that
Yeah.
goes on in between. And that was my living. The frenetic pace was my living, right? So that was a lifestyle. I've lifestyled myself into it. I had to lifestyle myself out of it.
Wow. Lifestyles, that's yeah.
Key.
Yeah.
It's key. That's where most diseases, conditions occur, within lifestyle. 70% of diseases and conditions that we're plagued with are lifestyle based. If we focused on that part of it, we could clean up so much.
So your journey back from the stroke,
Yeah.
how long was that process to transform from stressed out Evelyn to the...
Yeah. So I took 3 weeks off of work, which I'd never done.
Yeah.
That was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Well, figure it out. I need to do this. And then it took, 6 months was maybe a little bit of a marker, 9 months, really 2 years, where maybe somebody else might not see the things, but I'm like reaching for a word. I'm like, does anybody else see that? I can't think of this right now. So a couple years, but the fastest part of it was in the beginning, of like, okay, I looked at where are my levels on all these things that I now do as regular practice, the neurotransmitters, those brain chemicals, and the relationship to the hormones, the stress hormone, the cortisol. My cortisol had flatlined. When someone is in acute stress, if there's a situation that happens right now, both of our cortisols should spike up normally,
Right.
because it's a response to stress. But if you stay chronically in a stressed environment, eventually, because your body is pumping out so much cortisol, you're going to be totally depleted. And that's where I was, flatlined. And like most people, I had no idea of how bad I felt until I felt better.
Yeah.
Because that was normal for me. That's what I was living with. I was like, oh my God, like everybody doesn't feel this way? Amazing. And then you think about like, how did I do my day to day? Because there's no gas in the tank, right? So that's really how I then evolved into the work that I do now of using what's available to us, and then we get into the whole epigenetic part of things, which is so unbelievably useful for anybody, because, we all have strengths and we all have weaknesses, like anything in life,
Yeah.
in our DNA as well. So if we can identify those, doesn't it make sense to say, how do we optimize that so we don't wait until we're at the point of like, well, saw that coming,
Yeah.
Why don't we do something about it?
Yeah. As a man who has suffered from chronic fatigue in
There
the
you
last
go.
24 hours, in fact. I'm not making that up.
No.
I'm not being defensive.
Absolutely.
We've been working together this week, and for the first 2 or 3 days, I was properly janky from travel and
Right.
and lack of exposure to what I now know, lack of exposure to sunshine,
Right. Yep.
lack of sleep, lack of, eating the diet of a 12-year-old child. Or if you put a bowl of
Cereal
fries,
bar.
yeah. If there's burgers and fries to be had, I'm having it. And this channel is no stranger to the quest for the ultimate mac and cheese. On other videos on this channel, I've talked about manifesting, and again, the right side of Demented. I don't mean
Right.
the something for nothing
Right.
school of self-help,
Right.
but to create the life you want,
Absolutely.
you need energy to do that.
Yeah, and the mind believes what you tell it, right?
Right.
So that in itself is so powerful. It doesn't know the difference. Your mind doesn't know, no, that's not true. It knows what you tell it.
Right.
So the power that exists in that, to use that for good for yourself of, okay, I'm Danny and I am XYZ, whatever it is you want to be. And you're telling yourself that and telling yourself that, you believe it. You can get anything you want. You can
Yeah.
do anything you want. You can become anything you want. You have to put in the work.
Yeah.
But the mindset is there to say, yeah, that's true. Pretty good stuff.
Pretty good stuff. Right, let's do that.